And I was so mad at her. And she's like, I just want you to hear the way that he talks about you when you're not around. And that's when I was like, shoot, that's a really sweet thing to say. Like, that says a lot about, but I still was in a place where I was pretty anti-marriage. And one time we hung out just so that I could tell him, I don't want to date. I don't want to date anybody. And I actually don't want to get married. And if I ever did, it probably wouldn't be for years.
You're listening to With You Podcast, where we talk about real relationships and life transitions. I'm David.
And I'm Tara. And this season, we'll be exploring marriage.
Yeah, we'll be hearing couples tell their stories from different ages, stages, and backgrounds.
And we all have a lot to learn from each other, so let's get started.
Sounds good. Well, welcome back. We're so excited today to have two newly married people. I was going to say couples, but it's only one couple, but it's two people.
Yeah,
And
when did you guys get married?
December 18th.
Which now has been, as we're speaking now, how many, do you have a count of the days? What are we talking now? Weeks, months?
Not how many days. I think 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fresh.
So we're excited to talk to lots of people about their marriages at different life cycle stages. And I think you win, Jacob and Lauren, for the earliest, the shortest, newest marriage. And so we're really excited to talk to you. And we were hoping you could just kind of give a little introduction of who you are, where you come from, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. I'm Jacob, and I'm originally from California, a place called Modesto, California, in the Central Valley.
What's Modesto known for?
Car theft.
Oh, good.
All right. That wasn't your career, though, correct?
No.
Okay.
I was able to miss out on all the car theft. So yeah,
I'm sure there's wonderful other things
That's
for
a
people in
good start.
Modesto.
Yes,
That's just one of the industries.
there's a lot of farmers around there, and so yeah.
Good. Is that
cool.
Is that kind of Southern California, Northern California?
It's still part of the Central Valley technically, but it's really pretty far up north. It's past Fresno if you're going up north.
Okay.
So I like to tell people that, like, Sacramento is an hour and a half north of us, and then Fresno is an hour and a half south. So yeah, we're right in the middle.
And where are you from, Lauren?
From Gilbert, Arizona. Born and raised.
Wow, you guys are from Sunshine States.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what brought you to the Illinois area? Because we're here in Wheaton, Illinois, and you guys are a long way from there.
Yes.
From the sunshine.
From the sunshine. Long way from the sunshine.
Yeah, we're here because I am in the MFT program at Wheaton.
And for those not knowing, what's MFT?
Marriage and Family Therapy.
Oh, that's right. And I get to see you every day.
All the days.
All the days.
So you guys both come from out west. How did you meet?
We met in our undergrad. We went to Grand Canyon University, GCU, in Phoenix. And then our best man, who's his best friend, invited us to come to this little church plant in Phoenix. And just a group of us, not a very big group, like 6 or 7 of us, went to that little church plant for a year. And that's how we got to know each other.
Ah, so you're college sweethearts.
Yes.
Yeah. Were you? So you were the same year in college?
No.
Okay. So tell us more about that. Tell us how that happened, that you saw each other, and kind of what you were both studying and how that happened. Maybe you each have your own version. That's how it works with the two of us. Our versions are a little different.
Yeah, maybe that'll be the way it is here. But yeah, we were friends. We were going to that church, and I was studying. Yeah, I was a little bit lost, and I had done some biblical studies, like credits and like completed a couple courses in that degree. And then I switched my major to like healthcare administration, and I don't know what I was doing, but I wasn't doing very well scholastically because I felt lost, and I was just like sad a little bit. It was in a sad time in my life, and struggling with, things in my own family and things like inside of myself that I didn't like. And I was struggling with the idea that I didn't like myself. And then I started to like Lauren, and we were friends, and I took a long time to ask her out. And I was like not doing very well scholastically at all. And they asked me to go home.
Oh no.
And so I was like, you want to go out? I have to go home in 2 weeks. And,
This is a last shot, man.
Yeah.
right.
What was it you liked about her, Jacob? What drew you to Lauren?
She is like kind and caring in a way that was such a different way for me. Like, she's ferocious in the way that she cares for people, and once she decides that she's going to care for you, you've got like an army on your side. So there was that, and I think you've got a great sense of humor, and she cares about things that Jesus cares about. And so I was like, I'm in. I like her. And yeah, that's pretty much.
Yeah, so there was this 2-week pressure of, you were friends, you were noticing her, but like, oh, do I ask her? I don't know if I take the risk. And then finally the clock's ticking and you're like, yep, I got to ask her.
Yeah. It was like I was overthinking I was like praying and asking God. I was like for months, and then it was like.
And how long had you guys been friends by this time?
A little over a year.
Yeah.
A little over a year. Okay, so Lauren, what was going on in your head? You guys were friends.
Yeah, that is a different story.
Did you yeah. Did you know that he might be on his way out at that point in your friendship?
No, that was news. Well, backing up a little bit. So we started going to that church plant. It was the 2020 to 2021 school year, which was my senior year, actually. And it was also election year. And so at this little church plant, yeah, you're remembering that you forgot this part of the story.
And it was it was COVID year.
Yeah, and it was COVID year. So there was a lot. And the reason I really like this church is because they were wanting to really talk about relevant events and what was going on. And they were very justice focused, which was very appealing to me. But then once the election rolled around, there were just some pretty strong statements that were made. And we had that group of friends that we were going with, but we would have dinner together after. And he and I had like gotten in line at the same time. And I just kind of turned to him and I was like, what did you think about that? And it kind of started this political discussion where we believed very similar things on some topics and very different things on other topics. So we would hang out. There was like 3 or 4 times we hung out for 2 or 3 hours, just having like political discourse, like arguing and listen to this podcast. Did you read this article? But it didn't even feel like we knew each other as friends, really. It was like, we're friends because we enjoy talking about these things, but we don't I had no idea what was going on in his family at this point. I had no romantic feelings. I just had like this acquaintance really who was willing to engage with me, and I love arguing. So that was our friendship. And then that summer happened and I graduated, and DVD, you rejected me from your MFT program the first time around.
Oh,
so I
Ouch.
All right.
Which was really the greatest blessing of my life, because here we are sitting here together.
Oh, so that was a thank you then.
Yeah, that is actually for a lot of reasons. I'm so grateful that God timed it that way, or you timed it that way. I don't know what it is.
He and I work together. I kind of listen to what he says.
When we have some, looking back.
Yeah. So you were planning to go to grad school. That didn't work. And so then you're staying in Arizona. Arizona.
Yeah, I was in Arizona. I was actually doing kind of a part-time discipleship school through another church that I was involved in. But in the church plant that we were going to actually disbanded. Those pastors ended up moving away, closed down the church plant. But we still had this group of friends. And so I had invited them over to my house. And that's when he decided
yeah.
that he really did like me then.
Yeah.
I started noticing it then. And we have a mutual friend who's a girl who was like, what would you do if Jacob asked you out? And I was like, I would feel so bad. And then I would tell him no. And I was like, I just was not.
Now, was she a Confederate that then came back and told you that, Jacob, or was that just a conversation that your mutual friend had?
No, she never
Lauren?
said. I think she, filtered it a little. I think it was like, hey, I don't know if it'll. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't get your hopes
Yeah,
up.
don't get your hopes up, man.
So she kind of just was
world
like,
out there.
yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't the right timing for you yet, Lauren.
No, I was not having it. And she actually came to me 2 more times and was like, remember how you said that? And I was so mad at her. And she's like, I just want you to hear the way that he talks about you when you're not around. And that's when I was like, shoot, that's a really sweet thing to say. Like, that says a lot about me, but I still was in a place where I was pretty anti-marriage. And one time we hung out just so that I could tell him, I don't want to date. I don't want to date anybody. And I actually don't want to get married. And if I ever did, it probably wouldn't be for years. Like, I was very clear.
All right. Hey, hey, Jacob.
And that's when I knew.
Yeah.
He's joking, but that is actually, he'll tell you that's when.
That day is when I felt I'm going forward.
That did not deter you.
Yeah, no, it didn't.
Jacob, perseverance is good, right? I mean, there's something to be said about, okay, but I have a different thought and I'm going to keep on kind of being around, being a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did this spur you on? Most people would turn away at that kind of news.
I'm like the type of person that I had never been in a relationship before, but I can recognize that I think I had tendencies inside of myself to maybe give my heart away already to people before it was time. And I must admit, there was part of me that just couldn't stop caring for Lauren.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't not care. And I cared about her family and I care about her and I just couldn't shake it. I couldn't pray it away and there was nothing I could do.
Yeah.
And I was afraid because I had to go home. And I wasn't deterred just because I couldn't be deterred almost. I don't know what exactly that is. Maybe there's a word for it. Maybe it's crazy. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the word I would use is persistent. I think there's something about that. There's relationships where persistent matters. I know that was the case with ours.
He's speaking personally
Yeah.
because he took a similar tack. So did you actually I
want to say the one thing that you've been kind of tapping me not to say is that, Jacob, Tara said she would never marry me. She would never live in Illinois. There's a lot of nevers. And so I feel you, brother. I was just like, okay, that's what you think right now, but just give it time. I'm kind of a person that just grows on you. So there was persistence and patience. And so as I'm hearing you talking, I'm like, oh yeah, I resemble that remark.
Yeah. Did you end up going back to California?
Yeah. Yes.
So where did your relationship stand at that point?
That's a great story.
Okay, good.
Because this is only so there's a small gap here in the time where you sort of are making your feelings known and Lauren's saying, yeah, there's no hope for that. That's not going anywhere.
Yeah, if I do the
And
math
then you're
right,
leaving
that's
soon.
2021 and you guys got married in December of 22. So tell us more of the story.
Lot between then and now.
Yeah, God had to make it quick because that was October of 2021 when I was saying, no, 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 no.
Wow.
And then at that point, I had no idea that he was going home. But I did know actually after that night, like, because he was being persistent and because he wasn't even like forceful about it, he wasn't like, okay, but I'm still going to like you. He didn't defend himself. He did not try to really argue with me at all. I was like, oh, he's really ridiculously patient. And I had already kind of learned that in our political conversations. Like we had built a lot of trust there of we can really disagree about something, but we still know how to find the common ground or the middle ground between the two of us. And my family was in kind of a significant mental health crisis. And he was texting me literally every day saying, what can I do for you? How can I pray for you? And I needed a friend really bad at that moment. And I was frustrated because I was like, I don't want it to be him. Like, I don't, can I just receive help from anybody else? Like, he was really persistent in wanting to like really love my family well too. And so God actually really rapidly changed my heart through a vision I had actually that was kind of really undeniable and really shook my soul. And just from that point onward, I was like, really, it was a fight between me and God at that point of like, I want this, but I don't want this because I still think that marriage is horrible and I don't want to sign up for that. But I knew if I committed to this, that this was going to kind of be it because he's pretty incredible. And so, and I was like, but he's not asking me out. So I don't actually have to do anything about this because I'm having this conversation with God, but he's not doing anything. So I can take a back seat. And it was the very beginning of December when he finally did. And he's like, but also I think I'm going home. And I had just in November also accepted coming to Wheaton this following year. And I was like, well, that's really interesting because I'm also going to go to grad school soon. So what are we even doing here? And he just came to me and said, like, is this just what trusting Jesus looks like? And I was like, I guess so. I guess that's what we're doing. And we did. And actually that discipleship school that I mentioned earlier, they were very against me dating. In the beginning of the school, they had us sign this paper that said, you won't date anybody in the school, which I was fine with. But there was this clause there that's like, if you want to date anybody outside of the school, you need to talk to us. And it became this huge conflict. And so actually he went home with them telling me, you can't do this. It was very forming to my opinion on what spiritual authority is and should look like. And then they came to me a few weeks later and apologized and said, okay, fine. We would still advise against this, but this is okay, which is another story in itself. But that was the weird beginning of our relationship.
Yeah. Well, it's a very interesting leap too from you feeling like you're not even interested in the idea of marriage at all, marriage with a capital M. So it sounds like you were drawn more to the person of Jacob than the idea of marriage. Is that fair?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So tell us, I mean, you've described some of his characteristics that made you kind of fall for him, but can you tell us what are the main things that changed your mind?
Yeah, it had a lot to do with the things that God was revealing in my heart. I think I was more afraid of marriage than against marriage. I think I just saw people in marriage getting trapped and they didn't really know what they were signing up for. And so I just thought it was for people who are really naive and clueless about the suffering that was going to be involved in signing up to sacrifice your life for another person. And I think because I was also very upfront with him, I said, a lot of guys like you have liked me in the past, but then they kind of get sick of me because they like that I'm really ferocious or whatever you want to call it, opinionated or aggressive, whatever adjective you want to pick. And the adjectives slowly get kind of like more negative. And then I feel like boys in particular get really tired of that. And he was just very straightforward and being not the same, like not feeling the same way and really like thoroughly appreciating those things about me and seeing beauty in them, not just in a fleeting way, if that makes sense. So that really created a place of trust within me too. And I think we shared pretty extensively about each other's family history and past, and we had both been to counseling prior to our relationship, which was a really big deal to me. I was like, I'm never dating another person who hasn't been to counseling. That's crazy. So he just checked a lot of boxes, but I think God was really reassuring to me and reinforcing those things in prayer as well.
Yeah, and I'd like to kind of follow up on this idea of marriage, of kind of what did you learn about marriage from your own growing up, looking at people around? Because you kind of just started talking about that, Lauren, but I was wondering for you too, Jacob, of the expectations of what is marriage, how do we see it, how do you learn about it in the lives around you?
Yeah. For me, marriage was something that I always wanted. I always wanted to be married. I wanted to be a husband, and I wanted to love a woman with all my heart. And I think I for me I there were instances where I saw the marriages around me, crack and and shake, and really not until I was about to get into a relationship with before I was got in a relationship with Lauren did I see real turmoil in my my parents' marriage, and they almost split up, and that was so heartbreaking to me because they always tried to maintain that view of marriage, because I think that, and I don't actually have a problem with that. I think that it's good to view marriage highly, and that it's a good thing to strive for. And then they went through some very hard times as a couple, and so it was like earth shattering to me. It threw me for a total loop, and but I still wanted to get married, and I I never lost that fire in my heart to be a good husband and to be a good man. Yeah, that's really, I think, the gist of it for me.
And what about you, Lauren?
Yeah, my parents' marriage from the outside as a kid looks horrible. Like I've told them that multiple times. And my dad was really, not that he was against us getting married, but he was really, really hoping that I would change my mind, even up until pretty much when we got married. Was like the first year of marriage is the hardest year of your life, like just really, really negative about it. And I just think their experience has not been fun. And they're still married, so props to them for that. That's incredible. But there's just not a lot of love. There's not a lot of connection there. There's a lot of hurt and pain on both sides. And I think I grew up seeing that really clearly. And so that was my firsthand example. And then I babysat for several families from the beginning of high school through like until I moved to Illinois. So I had known these families for a long time, and there was a lot of redemptive things about seeing those marriages and about seeing dads that really cared and were really involved with their kids. And that was really beautiful and healing to me. But then when you're in people's homes for that long time, day in and day out, you're seeing the ways that they miss each other in communication, and the ways that they kind of cut at each other. And I just started seeing like, these are some of the best marriages I've ever seen. And it still doesn't look that fun to me, especially just having the advantage of like the third party that's always watching them. Like, oh, this doesn't have to be this way. If you could just like not miss each other in that way. You know what I mean? And you see people have the same fights over and over again. So that was kind of my background on marriage.
So at what point did you, okay, this is kind of a little bit of a different track, are you thinking the same thing I'm thinking?
I'm thinking the same thing you're thinking.
Is this kind of what made you think about marriage and family therapy as well? Because you were on that track. It seems like with the timing, you were already applying to MFT programs while still thinking marriage itself wasn't for you. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, truth be told, I did not know what I was getting into.
Yeah, most people don't.
Now, wait a second. I feel I was pretty good at explaining it.
You're talking about the program at this point, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I thought, because I came to Wheaton going, okay, there's clinical mental health and there's marriage and family therapy. What's the difference? And I think DVD kind of explained or this is what I heard is they're pretty similar, but MFT is applicable more cross-culturally because it has a more collectivistic view. And I have a real passion in my heart for the nations, and I'd love to support missionaries or work overseas one day. Who knows? Like, I just really liked that appeal that this was more applicable. But at that point, I thought there's not really a difference. There's just some like classes about marriage and family thrown in there. So I didn't really come into it marriage focused or family focused. I thought it was essentially all the same. This was just kind of a niche specialty that you hold within that. I had no idea. It's a completely different way of thinking about mental health. But I am so grateful that I chose it by far and away.
Yes, it's all just coming together, isn't it?
There's so much. It's beautiful.
I love it.
I do want to hear I'm feeling a little romantic. I want to hear like how they decided to commit to each other.
Right. Well, I think
who asked? I'm wondering if Lauren asked Jacob or if Jacob asked Lauren.
Well, we got to the point where you're about to start a long distance relationship, right? So you went out. So you finally asked her out, Jacob. You asked her out, like right on the brink of like where everything could go a different direction.
Yeah. I almost walked away that night, not asking her out. And I
Imagine
was so
how
afraid.
different.
It feels like a movie. It feels like we're watching a movie.
I know.
I feel the tension. You're thinking,
I saw him. He really was going to leave. And I kind of saved him. I think I asked him like a question as he was kind of turning to like continue the conversation because I was like, we can't.
You just gotta see what's going to happen. So
I asked her out and then.
And where did you take her?
Well, we.
I don't like to talk about first dates because, the first thing I did is I said, yes, but you need to talk to this man, not my dad, but another spiritual father who would later be the man who married us. And I said, I don't want to go out with you until you talk to this guy, which put him in an awkward position because he's about to leave. And it was actually the dad I was nannying for at the time. So I got to work the next day and I was like, hey, this guy is going to call you. And he was like,
that's kind of intimidating.
Yeah. He was like, I'll talk to him next week. And I was like, oh gosh, Jacob is not going to like that because Jacob was trying to have lunch with him the next day ASAP.
You got a deadline.
Let's go out. We got to go out. I'm about to leave.
And then at the same time, I did go and ask my discipleship school because I did not think it was going to be a problem, but I knew that in there we needed to just kind of let them know. And then that's when they were really like, absolutely not. You signed something. We're the authority. We're telling you no. And so I had to argue it out with them. And so there never really was like an official first date. He came over a few times that week and met my mom.
I met her mom that week and we hung out. Like we went to a cool convenience store and called their guitar and
a convenience store. That sounds so sad. It's like a trendy little place in Gilbert that just opened that has like an ice cream bar and a coffee bar.
I like Gilbert. You know, I went to high school in Phoenix, so I'm all with you with this location stuff. Yeah.
So you had a non-traditional first date that spanned a couple of days. Did you ever talk to the mentor?
Yeah, I did. And he's like, all right, man. I said, I want to marry her. And that was...
Wow.
That's how they started the conversation.
Wow. Well, we're going right to the heart of it.
No.
We're skipping a few
little
steps.
Bit. We were getting to know each other. And he's like, so what are you
doing here?
What are you doing here? And I was like, well, I didn't want to be scary, even though I did want to marry her a little bit already. But you can't just say that to people because that's like.
But then, did you? I
said
you did.
I'm here because I'd like to every thought in my mind is headed towards marriage. I've already planned it out.
I can see how that would go. So the guy says, state your intentions. And you're like, well, I'm looking to find somebody to marry.
I'm not just playing around here.
Right. That's
Yeah.
what I was trying to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
got
And
it.
Yeah.
I think I got it. Yeah. And he's like, okay, I trust you. And
Ooh, you passed the test, man.
passed the test. That's really all he wanted to hear, was that some guys, especially younger guys, I was only 20, I was 21, 22, and some younger guys, they don't have the idea to just be, faithful and be the man they want to be in the future. Now they would rather do something else.
Yeah, just have a good time and figure it out,
Right.
but no commitments, just see where it
Yeah.
goes kind of comment. And you're a little more big picture. I know where I want to head, and this is kind of why I'm doing this. That I respect that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. So you hung out for those few days, then you took off to California and
took off for Christmas. We had Christmas break, and then we
had to come back and move all of his stuff out.
I had to come back and move all my stuff. And really, I was there for like a week because I didn't have a job or like I was not in school and I didn't have a job, so I was there for a week, and we were like hanging out, and we just felt like, because you were asking about like the romantic side of it, like when did you feel like this was when did commitment come in? And really, we can look back at that week and say like we felt God's presence in a way that I can't explain. We felt like not, and it was something more than just like the butterflies of a new relationship. And I had never been in a relationship, and I could tell that there was something amazing about Lauren and the way that she was. There was something different.
Yeah, and Lauren, you guys were at this point considering yourself in a relationship. You'd crossed that line, yeah.
Yes, which is like I didn't want a relationship, and now I'm somehow in this long distance relationship, and then I'm gonna move in August, and what are we doing? And it really was just trusting God. And I think I also knew he had talked to Cruz, was his name, and said like, I want to marry this girl. And Cruz came home from work and he goes, this guy is awesome. I'm so excited. And I was like, I didn't know how much that was going to mean to me. And I didn't really want him to be so excited. I thought he'd just be like, oh, he seems like a nice guy, whatever. And he's like, well, we had a good beginning of our conversation. And he was very vague about it. And he's like, and then we talked about this, this, and this. And it was awesome. And I really like him. And then I asked Jacob, oh, how did it go? And he's like, well, he was very firm with me in the beginning. And then we talked about this, and they had like the same story with this vague beginning. And I was like, I don't know what that's about. And I don't think I'm supposed to ask about it, but I think I know what it is. But yeah, I think I knew early on. And then it felt like everything that came after that was just confirming that over and over again, that this was like God, and it was gracious and it was good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's beautiful.
And so you had some confirmation from the closest people around you that supported you.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we feel pretty strongly about when you're getting in a relationship. People that know you best, people that you're secure and safe with, to kind of explore getting feedback. And it's scary to do that, right? It's scary to invite him to talk to Cruz, and it's scary to talk to Cruz, but it really then is beyond our just individual judgment. And we did that, and our families liked us, so that was good too.
And our friends, it was trusting the judgment of the people who are close to us, and not just saying, love is all you need, because there's a bit more to it than that, right?
Yeah. It was sweet because the guy who had introduced us, who had brought us to that church plant, he was so excited. And then of course the girl who was talking to him and then saying, what if Jacob asked you out? Like, they were so excited, and that was like really meant a lot to me.
Yeah, that's a great sign. And so then the relationship progressed in a long distance relationship.
Long distance, you're like, like FaceTiming, or what are you doing to keep the relationship going?
Hours every day.
We probably spent like maybe Just a lot of
days of our
hours.
lives
A lot
on
of hours.
FaceTime.
Yeah.
But then it's like we didn't get to go on dates, but then we'd be together for like a week. Like my spring break week, I went to California, and several of his family members had also flown out there. So it was like get to know everybody all at once.
Yeah.
And then he'd come to Arizona for like a long weekend. And so it felt very intense when we were together because there was always a lot of people around.
So how soon after that Christmas break did the wedding planning start happening?
Mm.
Did you propose, or did you guys just kind of mutually start planning that together?
Well, we were right around both of those starting. Like I proposed May 20th.
All right.
But we
So
knew we were going to get
yeah.
married before then, because I was like, what are we doing? Because I'm going to go away to school. Like we can't just keep flying to Illinois. Like, what are
Yeah.
what? And then I knew that school kind of goes through the summer. So I was like, I don't want to do long distance for like a year and a half and wait till summer. We don't even know what the summer schedule is. But I think we're pretty, like, we know that we want to do this. And getting married the summer before I go to school is way too fast. Like you can't plan it that soon.
Yeah.
So this winter break, December time ended up being like a perfect amount of time to plan. If you ask my mother, she would not say that's a perfect amount of time. But for us, that felt really right. And we're really grateful that we did what we did.
Yes. Yeah.
And so then getting married, we'll kind of fast forward now. So you're married, they're on the same screen. So I'm assuming you're together in the same state.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's good. That's
here.
always helpful. The long distance marriage is a lot harder than the long distance.
Were you
dating.
long distance the whole engagement too, or did Jacob
Yeah,
move up
we've
here?
never
Yeah.
been in the same
Wow.
place.
Oh wow. So
Mhm.
this has been a big change of pace these last 6 weeks.
Yeah. It's been awesome.
So much better.
So much better.
I'll bet. There's a lot of reasons that's better. So tell us what that's like. I mean, going from spending so much time apart to all your time together, that can be a big shift for a lot of people because you learn a lot more that you can't learn over FaceTime.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we had seen a lot because we were staying at our parents' houses when we were visiting each other. So it's different to be together, but it's also different to be alone together because every time, I mean, he has so many siblings, and my house, I feel like it's either because my parents do kind of a half long distance marriage. Like sometimes my dad is home, sometimes he's not. Like it's never the same. There's not a lot of stability happening there. So it's been fun to kind of establish our own rhythm of like, how do we want to do life?
How do we do it? Let's let them do it that way. Let's figure out how we want to do it.
Yeah, we love that. We talk about that a lot because I think we all have our defaults. That's why we ask kind of, what did you observe about other marriages? How'd that affect you? Because sometimes we sort of fall back to thinking that that's how it needs to go, or just when we're not being intentional, that's the way it goes. But it's cool to start out and put your own flag in the sand and say, hey, we get to decide what this is going to look like for us.
So what are some of the things you've set up? So you've had 6 weeks. You should have patterns already.
Yeah.
Well, we're trying to go to the gym.
Trying to go to the gym.
All right.
Trying to eat some vegetables.
What is this thing you call I'm vaguely familiar with the gym. I have no idea what you're saying about vegetables.
That is
not
true.
really fun.
I do feed him vegetables.
So diet, like meals, cooking together, like how are you navigating all of that?
Yeah, that was something that was really important to him, is that in our first year of marriage, actually, he said that he would make dinner for me most nights, which is really sweet because I am not into cooking. And that's something that my family really never did. Like we never had an established, like, this is dinner time and we sit down. Like there was no routine or like tradition in that. So that is like really sweet and exciting and a blessing to me too. I think relationally, like another, like, not rule, but like a standard that we have is to not go to bed if there's something that's bothering you. Like we have to talk about it. And that was a rule even from not a rule. I hate calling it a rule. That was
I like rules.
You like the rules.
It was an agreement. It was a mutual agreement that you decided.
Yeah, it was an agreement. Yeah.
an agreement even from when we were dating, especially on FaceTime, because when you're not in the same place, if you don't say anything, the other person can't pick it up from your nonverbals, like they're not seeing what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think that has really been healthy even now to
have that,
to establish that is the standard.
So if you're willing, can you tell us kind of how you have a fight and what the resolution looks like? Like, how do you resolve differences? Or you could just do one right now. That would be fabulous.
Just some,
No, don't fight right now. I'm more interested in how does it go about just
Have you had something
it?
come up that's been hard to agree on?
A little bit. Actually, this was a question that we asked our premarital counselor. My amazing counselor did our premarital, and both of our parents separately were very, very passionate that we needed to have a first fight. Like they were asking us, have you fought yet? Have you fought yet? And that was something we were adamantly like working really hard not by like stuffing things down, but I think the agreement was like, we really want to fight hard to not fight, to be able to come to common ground and an agreement and end it with, even though we're different, we still love each other. Because at least in my house, that was not really modeled. So that's something that's really important to me. So then I asked our counselor, like, is this normal? Like, we really actually don't fight. Is this something that we need to work on? And she did this, had her wheeled out her little whiteboard and was like, we're going to talk about triggers, and it's inevitable in marriage that you will trigger each other. And that usually leads to fighting. But I never want there to be, for it to be spoken over you that you need to fight, but you do need to be honest about when the other person is triggering you. So we had to list out all of the things that trigger us and say them to each other. So
I don't think we fight. We communicate. And I think now we have to we're learning how to communicate in times where like feelings are feeling, like you're feeling your feelings.
Right. They're
temporary.
They're intense.
Right.
Like he had to come to me last week and say, essentially, the long story short was, stop telling me what to do. Because I communicate really by commanding. So I've been told by my counselor. So it's like, oh, do this, do that. And I don't even realize that I'm being bossy or telling you what to do. But he didn't start by saying, Lauren, you're so bossy. Stop. Like he was really gracious in saying, I really feel like you keep telling me what to do.
Yeah.
And then we could talk about that and I could like apologize. And I didn't feel like attacked or like afraid that he didn't like me anymore.
Jacob, what you're doing is called a gentle or soft startup. And John Gottman has done a lot of research on that. Well done, you. You discovered it on your own.
I know.
That it's about kind of coming from where you are. Here's where I am, and here's what this is doing to me and what's happening in me. And can we talk about that? That's much different than you're doing this.
Right. Being honest but kind.
Yeah.
And assuming that you're in it together.
What have you found out that have been some of the biggest things that you're different in now that you're living in the same space? Have you found some things that are really
I don't think
different?
They have any differences. Newly married couples don't have any differences.
Yeah. I think really communication, that is not actually the right word. It's the way it's the launching pad from which we're trying to communicate.
Okay. So like styles.
Yes. Yeah. And so I communicate in a more reserved and like just a very timid, maybe is the word. I think I have a problem being direct sometimes. And that.
And sounds like Lauren does not.
Yeah. So maybe we say, Jacob, you're more indirect in your communication and Lauren's more direct in her communication.
Yes, I'm more indirect. And I think I am really more in touch with like feelings, and I can really
Lauren's
nodding. Yeah.
She's agreeing with that.
I can really, for the most part, know what I'm feeling most of the time. And she is she's way more in touch with like, this is the smartest and wisest choice. And I think
Mm.
like she is really gifted in that area, making decisions and knowing what she wants. Like that's what I was trying to say. Like she
Yeah.
knows what she wants.
But I don't know how I feel.
Yeah.
You're
Mm.
decisive and yeah.
And I don't know what I want. And I don't know what,
But you know how you
knows
but I know
feel.
what I feel.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, that can be just beautiful because you can help each other out, or it can be really hard because you miss each other. And patience is going to be key.
yeah.
So that's a really good starting
Yeah,
spot,
and what
I
if-
think.
what
I think
are
it took us years to figure that
Oh,
out.
we're still figuring that
Yeah,
out.
you guys are way advanced.
It's a lifetime job for anybody. So what are some things you found that have just been joyfully agreed upon? What are some things that you've found that it's just like,
Oh,
man,
good,
this is
good question.
That's a fun question.
Yeah, that's a fun question.
Well, it sounds like you enjoy him making dinner. I would enjoy that too. That's nice.
Yeah.
That's a nice tradition and a good
Yeah.
stable pattern to have.
Yeah. I think we like spending time together because, like I said, we didn't really have a whole lot of
Yeah.
alone time. So it's like, let's watch The Office. 'Cause
Yeah.
when we were together, it's like we don't have very much time and there's all these people. So we need to spend time with our people because we're moving away. But
Yeah.
now it's like we would never sit down and watch a movie, like hardly ever.
Hmm.
Or if we did put it on, then it's like we were having some sort of conversation about what had happened earlier that day. So we really weren't paying attention. So it's fun to just like take a walk around downtown Wheaton and like go to a restaurant together because we didn't do
We
a
didn't
whole lot.
get
of
to
that.
do that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Have there been any big surprises like that you've learned about each other or just about marriage in general in these short 6 weeks?
I don't know if surprise is a word I think
I think, well, here's what I was surprised about. We ended up back in Arizona a couple weeks ago. My uncle actually passed away, but Jacob was really helpful to my mom in helping taking care of him in those last couple of days. And I was just floored. He worked at a hospital before he moved here, and I knew that he was helping patients and caring for them. But I think actually getting to see it firsthand, I was really just like, wow, this is incredible. And then I was thinking about it because he was a patient sitter. He wasn't a nurse. And I was like, I think that you might really like nursing. And he's like, well, I've always secretly kind of wanted to be in the medical field, but I've never really done. And I was just so surprised. Like, if you want to do something, then you should do it. And I just was really surprised that I don't know, that he had pushed that part of him down.
And so you've encouraged that in him.
Yes.
yeah.
And what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, it's hard because I don't know what I don't know what I want. So I've been kind of like, I thought I wanted to go into ministry for a long time. And then I thought, I worked at a group home for individuals who are severely mentally ill. And so I thought I wanted to run one of those for a split second. And then I worked at a hospital and I got really into mental health and thought I wanted to be a counselor. So I don't know. I think for me, yeah, I have been interested in medicine and caring for people. So yeah, I think
It sounds like that's
I don't
it
know
sounds
if
like that's the theme across all of those is kind of serving people, whether it's ministry, medicine, mental health, kind of the clinic idea across all
Yeah.
of those, Jacob. What I hear is the gift of caring for people and serving people. And so I don't think you can go wrong any direction within that area.
Well,
Yeah.
and the other gift is that you married somebody who knows you and loves you and is decisive. So maybe that'll
Yeah.
all work together.
maybe she'll point me in the right
Hopefully.
direction.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So I want to kind of go back one piece of, for people dating, thinking about marriage, would you recommend premarital counseling, and why or why not?
I feel very passionately about this.
All right.
Yes.
Can I answer this?
Go ahead.
Jacob
Yeah.
Jacob said yes. And now Lauren's going to extrapolate.
Because I had never thought about doing premarital counseling with a counselor. And I think that that is a scam, essentially, that churches market that, but that they don't really refer out to counselors or to professionals. I think even my friends' experiences with premarital counseling have like, well, we kind of read this marriage book, or it does not seem like it was very deep or very equipping. And when we explained to people what we were doing in premarital counseling, they were like, whoa, that's not what we did. That seems like really helpful. And so I just think that it should be more advertised that you can do premarital counseling with a counselor. And that's something that I, in the mental health field, really hadn't even considered until my counselor had offered it to us. So
and
that's my TED Talk on that.
What were some of the things that were helpful that kind of like people looking for in premarital counseling, not just reading a book, but what were some of the things, without getting too personal, that were addressed that was helpful for both of you?
Well, Lauren already mentioned earlier that there was a whole section on triggers and recognizing your body's response when you experience something triggering, and how your nervous system actually takes control instead of what is best. Like, because being slow to speak and quick to listen is always like best in those circumstances. So our nervous system kicks in, and a lot of us are out of control. We either run, or, which can be hurtful too to the other person, or we fight. And so we learned a lot about that. And really, we spent hours talking about what mattered and what our own lived experience and how that affects us still. And knowing that is really helpful. Yeah.
One of the other things that I think if I ever had a premarital session, I would absolutely do this, and I recommend it to anybody who's getting married, is she gave us a worksheet and made us write several of these things out before we said them out loud, which I think was helpful to really think it through and not just say what came to your mind at first. But the worksheets weren't really detailed. They were pretty open-ended questions. And one of the questions was, how will you know that you feel safe? What are things that you need to feel safe? And then we had to say them to each other. And we really spent a lot of time drawing out specifically what that means, whether it was a boundary or something else from our past that had made us feel unsafe in our homes. So
yeah. That sounds really in-depth and amazing. And I agree. I think everybody should have that kind of start before you even get to the point where you're living together and figuring that out as it comes up.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, we would love to talk to you guys all afternoon. We have a lot of stuff we'd love to hear about, but I'm just wondering kind of what's your hope for the future going forward? You have so much ahead of you. What are you hoping for kind of as you in the future of your relationship and your marriage?
Let's do our anniversary talk. We can ask them the question.
And then we can look back and see later.
Then we can look back and see later.
So he's referring to our tradition that we started doing, I think, early in our marriage, where on the day of our anniversary, we would go out to dinner and talk about kind of, first of all, how are we doing? Like, how do you think this year went? And you feel like we're in a good place together? Because you don't always check in, like, really like that. And then also, where do we want to be? Did we talk about before a year from now? Usually it was kind of like, where do we want to be in the next couple of months? Are the choices we're making getting us there? What do we agree on? What do we need to kind of tweak? Where do we want to be a year from now? What are our goals 5 years from now and 10 years from now? And that big picture was always really helpful for us to just know that kind of the choices that we're making in our careers and about kids and about choosing churches or whatever, that they're kind of leading towards the same place.
So maybe we'll ask you that. Where, kind of with the hope for the future, what would you like life to look like, married life and individual life, in a year and in 5 years? We'll just do that.
Well, in a year, still be here.
We'll still be stuck in the snow.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Still
you're
be
hoping that
studying.
you'll still be learning from me, right?
I hope that we'll be on our way out.
Fair.
Almost
That's fair.
Friday.
So finishing up school, doing life together.
Yeah. And I would hope that we would maybe have figured out what our next step would be from here, whether that is if you want to go to more school or if he's kind of decided a more firm choice on a career path that he wants long term.
Yeah. I'd love to have that nailed down in a year. I would very much think that is a good place for us to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's helpful, honestly, when you give yourself that sort of like, not a deadline, but like, if I know what I want a year from now, how do I take the steps backwards to move towards that so that by that time, that's where we're headed and that you both can encourage each other on that. David's always been the biggest encourager of my dreams, and I feel like vice versa.
Yeah.
So it's great to have somebody in your corner who knows you and also can say, I see that for you. That's awesome. What do we need to do together to get you there?
Well, and we know a ticking clock works for Jacob because it was like 2 weeks. I gotta ask her. So if we set
deadlines are helpful.
We set up a deadline for you. That might help. So it's going to be on tape. Is this tape? It's going to be on the record.
It's on the record.
That a year from now, you're going to have
That's his
kind
goal.
of a goal for what's the next step for you. How about 5 years?
Yeah. Where do you guys picture yourselves kind of looking in your relationship life 5 years from now?
I want to be in Arizona. I'd like to be there. I think it's such a nice place, and I think her family's there, a lot of her family's there, and I think my parents might make the jump out there because I have sisters out there, and it's just such a nice place, and really,
I think like big picture, I'd just like to be more established in a community, whether that's we did move back to Arizona and we were close with our families, or if we did end up somewhere else, that would feel like a home to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we wish you both the very best. You're off to a really good start.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for spending the time with us, telling us about your story. And I know that a lot of people are going to be encouraged to hear your story and maybe inspired. And we can't wait to share it. So thank you.
Even old married people like us were encouraged by stories.
Yeah,
so
remembering that fluttery feeling when you got to ask somebody out and you don't know what she's going to say.
Hey, what you got going on tonight?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for being with us today. We hope you'll get more information about everything we talked about today on our show notes page on the website.
I was going to say, where could we find the show notes page?
WithYouPodcast.com.
Awesome.
And also, while you're at it, we would love for you to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and let us know what you're thinking.
Can we ask that it's only good reviews?
You can ask anything you want.
Okay, leave good reviews. We would love to hear from you and respond. So
thanks for listening.
See you next time.